Underground tunnels described as mud caves, 4 to 6 feet deep, home to 8 children.
This is where they said they're living?
Just trying to make contact with you guys. Information. Hello.
State police conducting a search warrant on Melvin Cordell and his wife Valerie.
New Mexico State Police. Mr. Cordell. Melvin Cordell, Valerie.
It was a scorching day in the middle of nowhere, a stretch of barren desert scattered with broken trailers and piles of trash. Officers stepped out of their vehicles, eyes scanning the desolate landscape, unsure of what they were about to find. The property, hidden deep in the heart of Luna County, stretched over 35 acres, isolated and forgotten by most of the world. But then they saw the holes. Hand-dug tunnels, barely visible beneath the dirt, seemed to lead nowhere and everywhere all at once. They had been told there might be children here, but where were they? Their instincts telling them something was horribly wrong. This search had started with a single voice, one 16-year-old girl who had found the courage to speak up. She had been living in a place most would never imagine. Her decision to talk would soon reveal a hidden nightmare, one that had been buried in this desolate desert for over a decade, and it would take them to places they never expected to go. But before we begin, if you find this video interesting, please give it a like at the end and tell me what you think about the case. It really helps the channel. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more. Thank you. This video is created solely for educational and documentary purposes. It does not endorse, glorify, or condone any of the criminal actions or individuals described in this case. Viewer discretion is advised. She had been at the New Mexico National Guard Youth Challenge Academy in Roswell for weeks before she finally found the courage to speak. No one there could have guessed the weight she had been carrying. She described where she had come from, a remote property outside Deming, New Mexico. She told them that her family lived there year-round, even when the cold bit into the ground or the desert heat made the air hot. And as she spoke, the staff realized that what she was describing wasn't just hardship. It was survival under conditions no child should have endured. But that's not all. She also recounted 2 pregnancies during her teen years, the first when she was just 13 and the second at 16. She suffered SA from her father and was assaulted by 2 adult relatives leading to these pregnancies. She had been forced to conceal both pregnancies by her father and mother, who made sure she never received proper care, and the second one was terminated at home under conditions that only made things worse. The girl also recalled outsiders visiting the property, adults who had no connection to the family, people who came to take part in the abuse. These visitors were involved in criminal misconduct, the details too harrowing to fully disclose. The academy had a strict policy when it came to reports of neglect or abuse, so the staff immediately contacted local authorities. Her statement was carefully documented and passed to the Roswell Police Department. The officers who first read the report recognized its seriousness, and they wasted no time forwarding it to the New Mexico State Police, who had jurisdiction over Luna County. What began as a single disclosure from a frightened teenager was now turning into a coordinated investigation stretching across multiple agencies. But Deming itself is not a large city in the southern part of the state, about 35 miles from the Mexican border, surrounded by scrubland and open desert. Fewer than 15,000 people live there, and while it is known for its rock-hounding trails and small-town fairs, isolation is part of daily life. Families often live miles apart, with no close neighbors to notice when something went wrong. And that isolation, investigators would later realize, had allowed a family to hide a decade of cruelty in plain sight. The police expected to find signs of poverty, maybe a case of neglect or unsafe housing. But what they found waiting at that 35-acre property was far worse than anyone could have anticipated. The first visit began on a pale afternoon in late October 2024, when officers from the New Mexico State Police drove slowly along a dusty back road outside Deming. With them were caseworkers from the Children, Youth, and Families Department, CYFD, responding to a disturbing report passed down from Roswell. The coordinates led to a 35-acre plot in Luna County.
Let's take Take it easy. Are they big dogs?
Yeah, but I mean, they seem kind of scared. They're pretty scared of us.
Okay.
So I'll see straight of this.
One officer adjusted his body camera and murmured, "Are they big dogs?" Another laughed uneasily. "I'm hot already." The humor lasted only a moment, because the closer they walked, the more uneasy everything felt. Around them were broken-down campers, collapsed fences, and an old white van half buried in dust. Trash littered the ground, torn bags, plastic containers, and boxes that had long since given up their shape.
You there?
I don't see the white van.
Just say hello.
Like this old white van. It's not here.
Yeah, maybe they parked it back here. Let's go look. Hello.
They called out again and again. "New Mexico State Police. Hello? Anyone home?" But no one answered.
Right, dude. This pen? Yeah. Dude, his hooves are overgrown. Look at that, bro. That's not okay. They don't even clean his pen, bro.
The only response came from a few nervous animals. Thin dogs darted behind a trailer, and a horse stamped inside a small pen whose gate was nearly falling apart. One trooper paused beside an open hole and muttered, "Watch that drop. A kid could fall in there." It wasn't clear what the holes were, but they were deep and hand-dug, leading to shadowed spaces beneath the ground.
New Mexico State Police, hello.
They're right here. What they described.
Hello.
Out there well.
There's Porta's bathroom stuff out here. This is a trampoline.
Another trampoline here.
Okay.
So
Let's go.
Hey,
Yeah, there's two more.
that's holding something up. I don't know. It might lead to something they described.
I see.
The team moved carefully across the site, taking in every detail. Inside one camper, they found piles of clothing, empty cartons, and containers.
Triple pull somewhere? Oh, is that the free food that they get?
Yeah, but look, this isn't edible. Like, these yogurts have
100%, you're right. Yeah, look at that's probably out in the sun.
Yeah.
Walmart's or Deming's hot. Okay. Whew.
There was spoiled food left open, flies buzzing at every corner, and no sign that anyone had slept comfortably there in months. Everything suggested that people were living here, but not in any way that could be called safe. When they finished their sweep, the officers regrouped near their vehicles, exchanging looks that said more than words could. Nothing had prepared them for what they'd just seen, yet they still didn't know who lived there or where the children mentioned in the report might be. So they marked the location, filed their notes, and drove back toward town. They left that day with more questions than answers. The next morning, troopers returned to the same desert property. The place looked no different than before, but this time, someone was waiting for them. As the officers' vehicles pulled up, Melvin Cordell and his wife Valerie were standing by the way. They didn't seem startled or defensive. Instead, they walked forward slowly, almost expectant.
Told you I will be meeting Officer Carrillo.
he's on his way right now. Okay, so maybe another 5 minutes or so. All right?
I need to get my wife a chair.
A chair?
And she's probably thirsty.
Did she, you guys don't want to sit in the car for a second? I mean, that we have the air conditioner and stuff, and then we sleep. Because they'll be here in about 5 minutes, and then you guys can talk to Agent Carrillo and stuff.
I think they mentioned yesterday, my name's Melvin. They mentioned yesterday Agent Carrillo's rank, but I didn't catch it. I mean, no disrespect to him.
Right. And he should be here in a minute, so he can talk to you, let us know what we're going to do, because he's the investigator for this. But like he said, if you need a place to sit, you're welcome to wait in your car until he shows up. It's up to you. Just go wait over there, take a seat. He'll be here in a moment. Yeah.
Melvin told the officers he had been waiting for Officer Carr, his tone calm, as if this was a planned appointment rather than a law enforcement visit. Valerie stood close beside him, looking unwell under the sun, and Melvin asked for a chair and some water for her. The troopers tried to keep the interaction steady and professional. One of them suggested, "You can wait in the car if you'd like. The air conditioning's on, and the investigator will be here soon." While they waited, the conversation drifted. One trooper asked how far their land stretched. Melvin explained that his mother had once bought 10 acres on the property, and that the previous owner had offered to let them take over payments for 25 more. But he admitted they hadn't been able to finalize the purchase. The offer, he said, still stood. The officers listened, jotting notes. Then the topic turned to food and how they lived out there. Melvin spoke about growing vegetables, watermelons, cucumbers, tomatoes, and about how he preferred not to rely on store-bought produce. He said they wanted to be self-sustaining and to feed others when the harvest came. His words painted a picture of simple rural self-reliance. But only a day earlier, officers had seen the reality behind those claims: spoiled yogurt baking in the heat, containers filled with waste, and animals left in rough condition. Nothing on that land resembled the small farm life Melvin described, and 2 months later, on a December morning, state troopers drove back to the Cordell property, this time with a search warrant in hand. The officers moved in carefully, announcing their presence again and again. "State police, search warrant. If you can hear us, make yourself available." One trooper pointed out a narrow walkway leading behind a trailer. They followed it slowly, clearing corners one by one, marking each section as they went. Inside the first structure, an officer switched on a thermal imaging scanner, just in case someone was hiding in the dark. The deeper they went, the clearer the picture became. There were makeshift bedding areas, old mattresses laid directly on the floor, and blankets that looked recently used. Some spots were marked off with wooden planks, creating the outline of where people, likely children, had once slept. It wasn't much, but it was proof that the property had been lived in. Then, the search led them into the main trailer. One of the troopers stepped through a narrow doorway and saw a box stacked with electronic cords and a pair of dusty laptops. Melvin and Valerie were there, this time calm and compliant. Melvin explained that the laptops hadn't been used in years and pointed toward the boxes. As officers began collecting them, Melvin spoke quietly. "I'm sorry for the mess. We got overrun with mice." He said it with a tone almost apologetic, as though the rodents were his biggest problem. The troopers looked around and saw signs of what he meant: shredded boxes, droppings, and gnawed fabric. But the disarray went far beyond mice. Every wall, every corner, every pile told a story of neglect that words couldn't smooth over. The officers gathered the evidence: laptops, cords, boxes, staging each one before loading them into a van. Valerie stood nearby, silent. Melvin tried to keep up small talk about the heat, about their van breaking down, about how they used to keep the place cleaner before things got hard, but the words fell flat. When the search ended, the officers hadn't found the children, but everywhere they looked were signs of where the children had once been. The bedding, the toys, the scattered clothes, and the tunnels beneath the ground all whispered the same truth. They had lived there, and not long ago. It wasn't easy for her to speak. The girl had been carrying the weight of a nightmare for years, but when she finally found the courage to tell someone, everything changed. She was 16, away from home for the first time, and in the safety of the New Mexico National Guard Youth Challenge Academy in Roswell, where structure and routine had started to clear away the fog of her life. It was there, during a private conversation with a staff member, that she told them what had been happening behind closed doors. She said it began when she was about 12 years old. She remembered how it started slowly, at first just isolated incidents, but soon escalating into something much darker. Her father, Melvin Cordell, had been the one who first turned the house into a prison. She described how they were forced to live without the basics most people take for granted: food, safety, shelter. They lived isolated, hidden from the outside world, tucked into the barren desert. The girl explained how she and her siblings, ranging from 6 months to 16 years old, spent most of their time in unsafe, makeshift sleeping spaces, often on the bare ground, with nothing more than a mattress or blanket to shield them from the dirt. She spoke with a quiet sadness about hunger, how there were days, sometimes weeks, when they ate little more than scraps, whatever they could find or salvage. She didn't remember the last time she had felt full, and the weight of deprivation had become just another part of their existence. Her statement revealed more than just a glimpse of what she had lived through. It opened a door that law enforcement could no longer ignore, a door that led straight to a house of horrors hidden deep in the New Mexico desert. On February 21st, 2025, it all came to a head. After months of investigation, police finally had the evidence they needed to make the arrests. They acted on the warrants they'd secured, moving swiftly to the Cordells' 35-acre property in Luna County. The officers moved in carefully, coordinating with CYFD representatives to ensure the children would be taken into protective care. As the New Mexico State Police arrived, both Melvin and Valerie Cordell were on the property, and their reaction was oddly calm. The couple didn't resist, as they were handcuffed and taken into custody. There was no panic, no frantic attempts to flee, just a quiet understanding that the walls had finally closed in on them. Melvin was arrested on a total of 24 felony charges. The list of charges included several serious offenses: criminal sexual contact, child battery, and tampering with evidence. Each charge highlighted a different aspect of the harm that had been done to the children. Valerie faced 18 felony charges of her own, most notably child abuse and conspiracy to commit. While she had not been charged with the same degree of violence as Melvin, her role in allowing the abuse to continue was just as damning. The district attorney, Norman Wheeler, announced that both Melvin and Valerie would be held without bond. His words made it clear that there was no leniency. The stakes were high, and both Valerie and Melvin were now in the system, awaiting trial. The next major moment came on April 28, 2025, when the Cordells stood together in court once again. This time, they entered their not guilty pleas, a formality in a trial that would play out over the coming months. In the eyes of the law, they were innocent until proven guilty, but the mounting evidence painted a far different picture. While the courtroom drama unfolded, the Cordells' children were still in state care, living under the CYFD's protective custody. As of mid-2025, the trial was still pending, leaving many unanswered questions. What would the future hold for the children? Would they ever be able to return to a life of normalcy? Jessica Preston, a spokesperson for CYFD, provided a statement about what would happen next for the children. When allegations of mistreatment or neglect are confirmed, the department typically moves to permanently revoke parental rights. In this case, the children remain in state care, and we are committed to their well-being and ensuring they are placed in a safe, supportive environment while the legal process plays out. The journey from that first October report to this point had been swift, but the road ahead is far from over. The children remain in the care of the state, and the Cordells, still presumed innocent, are about to face the consequences of a decade's worth of hidden cruelty. The trial would soon answer questions that had haunted this small New Mexico town for months, but for now, the uncertainty lingered. News of the Cordells' arrest spread quickly across Deming and the wider Luna County community. For a town of fewer than 15,000 residents, it felt deeply personal. Everyone seemed to know someone connected to the family, but few had ever guessed what was happening behind their gates. Neighbors spoke with disbelief. Some described the Cordells as a tight-knit family, always together, rarely causing trouble. One man remembered seeing them at the grocery store, quiet but polite, with the children standing close to their mother. Another neighbor hesitated before admitting that something had always seemed off. She recalled seeing the children sleeping in an unheated outbuilding one winter, wrapped in thin blankets, but she had convinced herself it was temporary. "They just looked like a family doing their best," one resident said. "You never think something like that could be happening next door." The Cordell case reignited a long-standing conversation in New Mexico about the hidden nature of rural. In isolated stretches of the Southwest, families can live miles from neighbors, making it easier for suffering to go unseen. Community networks are small, privacy is valued, and rumors are slow to spark official action. And just like before, the questions lingered. How did so many people miss it? How could a system built to protect children fail them for so long? The answers, as investigators would later admit, were complicated, but the consequences were not. A family was destroyed, a community left in shock, and the state forced to confront the gaps in its own protection network. The case forced everyone, neighbors, police, and social workers to face hard truths about what can hide in plain sight. It reminded a small New Mexico town that safety isn't just about fences and family ties. It's about paying attention, even when the signs are quiet. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every one of them. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more true, deeply researched crime stories. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, look out for others, and stay safe.